bright and early. We decided to hit the road. Well, first of all, when I say we got, of course, trusty Eric behind us a little bit, and the host of All Out Live, Brian Basone.
What's up, guys?
Driving
the LTD, the luxurious cruising machine, mid 65 miles per hour, keeping up with traffic. Drives like, look, hands off the wheels.
Yep, it's about a 95-mile drive to McNews Automotive. You know, Brian was kind enough. I apologize for the lack of videos lately. I've been taking care of my dad for the last few years, and unfortunately he passed away on September 3rd. And I realized that I hadn't uploaded any videos, and how many more videos do you guys really want to see of just me making pulls and looking at data logs? And since Brian was kind enough to come up here, help me with my dad's house and all that, I figured we'd do something nice and head out to Crazy Ray McNew.
Yes, Ray McNew.
And let's put this thing on the dyno. You know, I know we don't have it fully dialed in yet, but you know, at least we'll get a baseline on naturally aspirated, and you know, we'll see what the SC impeller does. I'm not expecting a whole lot. Hey Brian, any guesses on all motor? What kind of power?
What did I say last night?
380 something?
386 on the motor. And I'm gonna say only 4 pounds of boost.
Well, it's gonna be less than that at peak. It's gonna taper off. I don't even know if it's gonna make boost at peak.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna have a little faith in the electric supercharger and all the work you put into it. 425 to 435 is gonna be where it's gonna be at.
Fair enough. I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna take it for granted that we do have, if you notice, we got a little flare in the converter without having the old Whipple on there or whatever you had on here before. It's definitely a lot looser than it was before. So I'll take that for granted. It may not be as touchy, but I still think it's gonna make over 400. I'll state it, over 400.
All right, fair enough. So I'm gonna go with 371 on the motor and the wheels, and I'm gonna go with 412 peak, but I think it's not going to be a horsepower curve. I think it's going to be a horsepower line, because I'm sure some of you guys have been watching Richard Holdner's videos, and basically power is dictated by your power adder when you're talking about boost. And since we have a fixed impeller speed, I think we're going to have basically a fixed horsepower curve. In other words, line. So we've been driving now. Let me see how far away we are. I'm going to find my phone. It's yours. Here's my phone.
It's 9:33 a.m.
It's 9:33 a.m. We're supposed to be at Ray's at 3 minutes ago. We got 31 miles left to go. You know, she's doing pretty good.
But look at the impressiveness. Now watch this finger. Rear fuel, beautiful cruise. Fuel pressure. Look at the temperature. We've been driving now for what? An hour?
Yeah, about.
Boost, 59 pounds of oil pressure. We're at what, 504 in elevation. We're going higher and higher up on this thing. We're cruising at 65 miles an hour. Hovers around 27, 28. Got a little flare, it'll flare up a little bit, but the motor's locking down pretty tight around 3,000. I could probably go 70 in this thing all day long. All day, nothing. Perfect, absolutely perfect. And it drives easy. No shakes, no rattles, no rolls. Got a regular standard belt on. I'm just cruising like a Sunday, even though it's a Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. Indeed. Yeah, so you guys might recognize Brian as the host of All Out Live.
Welcome to South Carolina Motorplex. That's right, it's All Out Live. We've got some of the greatest racers in South Carolina here. We've got them lined up in the staging lanes right now. We're gonna run these guys straight on through. It's a hot lap competition. So the last time I drove this car was back when I worked on the car back in 20, how many years ago?
No, dude, that was the 90s, man.
I don't even know how old I am now. So many, back in the 90s.
It was like, I think when we put it on a dyno at your shop, I was maybe 21, 22. That's when it had the freaking, so we're talking 25 years ago.
So 25 years ago, this particular exact car, I did the swap in this car for you.
Yep, I didn't have a garage.
Didn't have a garage. I did the swap way back in deal with my shop at ELD Performance. I drove that car. Come 25 years later, Alex and I are still friends. Work together. You know, we do the show together, production, and I'm sitting here driving an electric-powered, supercharged LTD. Life has changed. The world has changed.
It's a hybrid.
Right?
Right?
We're driving the first supercharged hybrid LTD ever in the world. You say that, right?
Yeah, and it is the most, even if it doesn't make any boost at peak, it's still the most powerful electric turbo car in the world right now.
It's the most powerful electric LTD in the world.
All right, the infamous tuner Ray McNew. What do you think it's going to make on motor?
I don't know. We think 400 to the tire.
I think you're being generous, but
All right. 350.
it made 363 with the short.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll see what kind of tune-up you got in it first, right?
Yeah, no, tune-up should be good.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
That's right.
All right.
Hey, this is the truth right now. When you put it on here, you find out.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? So we'll see what it does.
Let's do it.
All right.
Well, 364.
That's pretty close, huh? You about hit it right on.
I had the advantage. 363. I knew that. There's a lot of oil smoke coming off this thing now.
It's a little ridge rolling in.
Well, let me take a look at the data log. Let's do a little tune. All right, this is pull number 2. 24 degrees of timing. Well, going down was a good call. It picked up. 367. I'll tell you where the oil's coming from. It's coming from the back somewhere. Like down by the header. Might be. It totally might be.
I rolled into that the same. Look at the bottom end it picked up.
It's crazy. So we're not going up to 28, that's for sure. What do you think?
I'll tell you what. You pulled it across the board. Probably from 5,500 up, I'd probably add a little bit because it started to drop here because it's basically pulled up stronger. I think if we roll it in right here, we could pick up some more power.
So you think I should add a degree?
Yeah, I'd maybe, you got 26 across the board, right?
No, 24 now.
24 across the board. So I think what we should do is, it was probably too heavy back here, but put a couple degrees in it here and then do even more out here. Because as the car accelerates, we want to keep raising the timing. So I'm thinking put 2 back in here and put 4 in out here and let's see what it does.
You think that much?
Yep.
Really?
Put 28 in it up top at $6,000. At 55, do 26, and we'll make a pull and see what it does.
All right, Ray, talk to me.
Well, adding the timing up top. As the piston speed picks up and you get through peak torque, you want to start raising your timing, because the acceleration rate of the engine and your cylinder pressures, you're through peak torque, which is your peak cylinder pressure. So you want to start gradually adding your timing in, so it gives you a carry out in the top end. That's the benefit of being able to control it with fuel injection, that you can custom map the timing. Because coming into peak torque, you want to sort of level your timing off a little bit.
Right.
And then you want to start coming out of peak torque, you want to start rolling that timing in. That'll help give you that carry on the top end.
And where was this thing making peak power, RPM wise?
On that pull there was about 6,000.
Right.
Right in that area. I think we'll get a little bit more of a carry on this pull.
I'm gonna be impressed if it works out that way, Ray.
Well, I guess I'm gonna roll the dice and see, right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yep.
Ray. And that's why Ray is a rock star right there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, man, that worked.
What do you do?
All right, so what he did is we pulled it down to 24 degrees of timing, and then we basically, he had me add in what, 25 at 5100, yeah, 26 at 5500, and 28 up top. Thoughts working at this?
Yeah, I mean, it carried its power the whole way through. We picked up the whole way through.
And peak is right around still 6,000.
Yep, and I rolled into it exactly the same.
All right, I just have to stop the video right here because I don't know if you caught that, but you were just in the presence of godlike tuning skills. So Ray just took one look at the lines and he knew immediately which way to move the timing curve around. It was the most impressive thing I think I've ever seen on the dyno. You know, I've been on the dyno maybe 100 times. I've tuned my car most of those times probably, but and I've always been successful. I mean, it's the greatest money spent if you're tuning a car. If you're working on a car and you have some ability to tune the thing, take it to the dyno. You'll pick up power. It's good money spent, like I said. But in this case, this was just mind-boggling to me. So all he had to do was look at the graphs and know exactly what to do, and he picked up more power than I could have. In fact, let's go look at the graphs. All right, so this is the result of the first pull. We saw a peak of 364 and 326. You know, I had the advantage of knowing where I'd been before. I expected actually a little bit more than this. I actually expected where we ended up because of the long tubes, but there's a lot of variations, different dyno, you know, different weather conditions, different altitude, all kinds of stuff comes into play there. But we decided to pull 2 degrees of timing out of it just to make sure we were in that, you know, sweet spot as far as ignition lead goes. And we made that second pull. So we pulled it down to 24 degrees from 26 degrees, and we ended up with this. So it really liked it down low. You can see that the torque picked up quite a bit. Let me highlight that pull. So the torque definitely picked up a lot. I mean, we're talking like what, from 300 to like 340-ish maybe. That's crazy. That's a huge gain from 2 degrees. But then Ray looked at it up here and he didn't really like what it was doing up high. Now down here, of course, the curve is going to be a little bit smoother because it is a glide, and you know the converter plays a huge role in a glide because you only have 2 speeds. So the converter's torque multiplication, everything else really comes into play here. So you have to be very careful how you pull a glide on the dyno. But Ray did a fantastic job. So that's why this may be a little bit smoother than what you see up here. But he just looked at the curve and he could tell right away, okay, well, it needs some more timing up top. So upon his sage tuning advice, you know, we kept it to 24 degrees up to 5,000 RPM, and then at 5,100 we turned it up a degree to 25. 5,500 it was 26, and at 6,000 we set it to 28. Now the EFI unit interpolates between those, so it would create a nice smooth curve. And you know, much to my surprise, I mean, he was down for the challenge in the video, you saw him, but much to my surprise, I guess I really shouldn't have been surprised. That's the wrong word. Much to my awe, because I'm very much in awe of what just happened here. I mean, this is fantastic. You know, so we ended up picking up almost 10 horsepower at the wheels, and almost 20 foot-pounds of torque also at the wheels, just from doing very minor timing adjustments. This was not a lot here. Air fuel has never done a whole heck of a lot for me. As long as you're in the ballpark, it doesn't really seem to change your horsepower numbers much, but timing does, and we can see it right here. And another thing I want to say, that, you know, because this is a glide, you know, some people, given the specs of the motor and everything, might say, wow, those numbers are a bit low. But you have to remember that this is a glide that rides the converter. It's almost like driving a CVT. So there is a lot of loss due to the converter. So typically, if this was a stick shift car, we probably would be seeing around 430, maybe 435. If this was a modern lockup automatic transmission, we might be seeing, you know, 415, 420. If it was one of the new ones, like the 10-speed, it might even be as high as, you know, 425, possibly 430. But keep that in mind when you see these numbers. These are some pretty impressive numbers. 373 flywheel horsepower translates to roughly 500 at the flywheel in this car, and we can confirm that with the data logs and the duty cycles. Based on a very pessimistic brake-specific fuel consumption, it may actually be making a little bit more, but you know, if you're pessimistic, you won't be disappointed, right? So anyway, so that, I just wanted to say, you know, everyone bowed down before the great Ray McNew. And oh, by the way, if you want to get your car tuned by him, it's McNew's Automotive, just outside of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. I will put a link or some contact information or something down in the description below, so check it out. I mean, you know, if you're anywhere within a couple 100 miles of that area and you need a tune, this is your dude. But anyway, let's go put the electric Vortec on and let's see what happens. All right, is it electric blower time, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. Do it.
All right, here we go. In the interest of full disclosure, another thing I did was add some Klotz higher octane boost to the tank. This does not add any horsepower to the car. This is purely out of an overabundance of caution. Even though we most likely didn't need it at all, I've blown up enough motors in my day to realize this is some really cheap insurance. And I went with this specifically because it doesn't have any MMT, and should we start getting froggy and start pulling the plugs, MMT additives, while they do work, they do add octane. They make it tough to read the plugs because they leave sort of this rust orange deposit on the plugs. When I called Klotz to discuss this particular thing with them, one thing that the guy did offer is he did offer some oxygenate that they manufacture that does actually increase horsepower. So if you guys want to see a dyno test on that, let me know in the comments below, and you know, we'll try to arrange that. I've run Q16, which is an oxygenated fuel, and it did give me some power, so maybe that would work. So if you're interested in seeing that, let me know down below. Let's get back to the electric Vortec.
Wow, that picked up power. I think it went over 400.
What did we get?
417. That's pretty good. Look at it pulled the whole way out the top. Till it come on. with the time delay you have built in,
It worked.
yeah, it did.
417. We gained, what is that?
At 6 grand.
47. We gained almost 40, over 40 horsepower.
Yeah.
With the wrong wheel.
43
On a
horsepower.
500 horsepower car to start with.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That's not bad, huh? I looked up and I seen that line. I was like, wow, that line's going up above there pretty good.
Hey,
And look at the air fuel is right on the 12 out.
That's pretty much
And
what we're
look how
doing.
nice and actually smooth. I mean, the curve looks good. The delay, because I got in it and then
Well, you held up your hand first and I hit it. And then you did this. And I was already in it.
Oh, okay. But the delay for the button to come on was a little bit later. You know what I mean? No, that's pretty good.
You guys heard that right. 437 rear wheel horsepower. So we picked up, what is that, like 64 horsepower at the wheels from a very low boost number. We'll look at that in a little bit. But take a look at the curve. You can see where the red line, which is obviously the boosted line, and the blue line, by the way, is our best naturally aspirated pull. So you can see as the electric turbo started to ramp up, it shot up in RPM. It went from 4,750 up to 5,500 RPM. And the thing is, if you were to change this axis and look at it in terms of time, it would look totally different. It would look smoother, and you can see where it ramped up. It's all the way up here in the corner. I'm not going to change the axis because that'll get screwy, but you get the gist of it here. So let's go back to RPM. All right, so we're back on RPM. So you can see that it comes in pretty strong, and it does create more or less a horsepower line. It's slightly going up, I admit, but it's pretty close. And I think the reason why you see it going up is the converter still has slippage in it, and the higher up you go, the tighter the converter effectively gets, the more power it's putting to the wheels. But it's fair to say our highest number is exactly at 6,000 RPM, and it's, you know, overall peak somewhere in there is 437 horsepower. So here's the data log of that pull. You can see the red line is boost, the white line is RPM, and the green line is throttle position. So if we go to before we hit the electric turbo, that would be roughly 4,500-ish RPM or so, where we hit the juice, so to speak. And then by the time the turbo spools up completely, we're already at 5,300, over 5,300 RPM, and we're seeing 3.4 PSI. Now, we did see almost 4 PSI on the street, but the reason for that is, you know, that was only 5,100 RPM, so you're going to see more boost. Here we didn't start till 5,300 RPM, so, you know, it is a downhill slide because it is more or less a fixed impeller speed. So let's take a look and see what it was doing near peak horsepower. So that peak horsepower was roughly 6,000 RPM. Let's get down to 6,000 by stepping through here. So that's more or less 6,000 right in this ballpark. Let's call it good. And look at our boost. 2 pounds. 2 pounds. We gained 64 rear wheel horsepower from 2 pounds of boost. That's roughly 80 flywheel horsepower that we picked up from 2 pounds. So back on the dyno graph here, I mean, that really highlights how effective this thing is. And the best part is, we're using the wrong impeller. We're using the worst possible choice for an impeller. We're using the SC trim, which was designed for high RPM motors. So it has the actual, if you go back on one of my videos and take a look when I disassemble the Vortec, you can get some good shots of it. They clip the fins, literally. So it requires more speed. Even a regular old S trim would be a substantial improvement over this. But I think what we really want is an SI trim impeller, which I think the Volute can be machined for it, and I think it'd be great if we do that. So that's probably the next step. But, you know, 437 horsepower, you know, after what happened, you know, the whole, I've been taking care of my dad for a number of years at this point, and, you know, it was a little hard. It was a little bit of a shock, but I needed to pick me up, and here you go. This is it. I wasn't going to play this clip, but why not?
Alex is the man.
Well, there you have it. We had a fantastic time on the dyno. Thank you so much for watching, and a very sincere thanks to my patrons. Like I said, we're not done yet. We still have quite a bit of work to do. I think we could get this thing up to and over 500 rear wheel horsepower. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Can we hit 600? I'm a little less confident in that, but I can tell you right now, at its current power level, you're looking at a solid 10-second car at 448 rear wheel horsepower with more weight, because remember, the positive displacement blowers that I typically run are a lot heavier than this. With more weight, that went like 10 sixes at 126, 127 miles an hour. So we're right there. This should be sort of mid-high tens region. You know, we get that up to 550 rear wheel horsepower, and we're going to be looking at a 9-second car, which I think is doable. So, you know, there's a lot of room left. Stay tuned and subscribe.